great pleasure to wish you all welcome to this year's PROSIN conference. We are a bit proud, actually, that this is happening. This is the 10th anniversary for this conference, and we couldn't call it off because of COVID-19. So here we are. We are engaging you all, both here, this audience live from Fevik, and 300-400 people around in these very important matters that are so important for us in the future now, how to transform this economy. So when the llka was cancelled, we used the opportunity to move back to this site where we have had the PROSIN conference before. As you can see, we have a beautiful scenery. And we also made it possible for more participants to be part of this conference. So, as I said, we are now 300-400 people around looking into what's happening here today. So, I'm so happy to welcome you all and also to introduce our professional moderator, Ruth Astrid Sæther.
Thank you, Helena, and congratulations on the 10 years anniversary. This is my first time at the PROSIN conference, I have to admit, but I do get the impression that the birthday child is both energetic and optimistic to the future. Is it? Yes. That's good to hear. And this afternoon's event is organized by Eyde Cluster in cooperation with Invest in Norway, the Confederation of Norwegian Enterprise, Hydro, Sintef, and Northvolt. And this is the second out of 3 webinars in the Nordic battery scene series. And Helena, you and your team have put together a quite nice but relatively well-packed program for this afternoon. And some keywords are the dynamics of policy versus market forces, innovation and collaboration, of course, reuse and recycling of materials, and above it all, or maybe I should say at the core of it all, sustainability. Because the main question you are asking, or we are asking, in the title of today's program is, how can the Nordic battery value chain contribute to a sustainable European future? That's a pretty big question, and I'm quite sure that we're going to have several good perspectives on that during the next 2 hours. So it's time to dive into the program. So thank you so far, Helena, and enjoy the seminar. Thank you, Helena. Now, although this seminar has a Nordic, a European, and even a global perspective, we are going to start close to home, here in Norway. We're now going to call on Oslo, where we find our Minister of Trade and Industry, Iselin Nybø, from the Liberal Party. And we've seen her a lot here in Norway the last few months, and not only to talk about corona-related crisis packages to the industry. And I know that she's highly dedicated when it comes to the green shift. But today I wonder how and where she sees the battery opportunities within that frame and how ambitious she is on the industry's behalf. It is time to leave the floor, or maybe I should say the screen, to Iselin Nybø, and I hope you will welcome her all with a nice round of applause. Iselin Nybø, the floor is yours.
So thank you so much. Can you hear me? No one's nodding, but
yes,
yeah.
We can.
Dear everyone, 2020 has turned out to be very different than anyone could have imagined. The corona crisis hit us and demanded immediate action. Even though the virus outbreak has changed a lot, the need for a green shift is just as urgent as before. Norwegian industry, which you are all an important part of, is known to have a great ability to adapt to changing conditions. And this is a major strength for us now. To tackle the economic consequences of the corona crisis, the Norwegian government has launched several crisis packages During the early stages of the crisis, it was necessary to take action to prevent bankruptcies and prevent people from losing their jobs. Then we moved on to the next stages, which involved creating new and greener economic growth. To accomplish that, we are supporting ideas. We're supporting research and businesses which contribute to developing climate-friendly solutions and technology, and thereby reducing greenhouse gas emissions. The green crisis packages are mainly aimed at private businesses, and that includes green shipping, hydrogen, battery technology, and circular economy. To make progress towards a greener industry and lower greenhouse gas emissions, both the private and the public sector have to work together. We have to take advantage of the experience and the expertise that Norwegian businesses already possesses, and at the same time allow for new ideas. Businesses and industries have to develop. The Norwegian government are taking a number of measures to help the industry take advantage of the possibilities that the green shift represents. That includes financial support for research and development, and facilitating collaboration through Process 21 and other forums, to name just a few. The Norwegian maritime industry is already at the forefront of developing new technology and adopting new and environmentally friendly solutions. And one of those solutions is battery technology. The use of batteries plays a significant role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Norway has an established world leader when it comes to green shipping. Electric cars are everywhere to be seen. I'm sure all of you that has had the summer vacation in Norway driving around and sees lots of electric cars everywhere. But the potential is far greater. Batteries can be used in a number of sectors, and this represents an exciting business opportunity for the future. One of the topics you are discussing on this seminar or conference is how the Nordic countries can work together and contribute to further development of the European battery industry. And Norway, we are committed to contribute to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Battery production is very energy intensive, and easy access to affordable renewable energy is crucial to succeed. In Norway, 98% of all electricity comes from renewable sources. More than 100 years ago, some Eyde took advantage of this and created an industrial adventure which has generated enormous value for Norway. Today, as we move forward in the green transition, the access to electricity from renewable sources gives us a competitive edge when it comes to creating new and green industrial adventures. Another benefit when it comes to battery production is that Norway also is home to primary producers of many raw materials used in batteries. By making the most of these unique strengths, we can contribute to making the battery industry even greener than today. In line with the EU Green Deal, the aspiration is that batteries and their components will be reduced or recycled, and thereby securing that critical raw materials remaining in Europe, enabling a more circular economy. of course, this mindset does not just apply to the battery industry. As we strive for a more sustainable world, we have to make it easier for all businesses to reduce the resources and to reuse the resources that they have available. Therefore, the Norwegian government is working on a strategy for circular economy to realize more of this potential. Climate change and our commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is critically important for all of us. And the corona crisis is still ongoing and demands action and resources. But at the same time, we have to keep up the pace of the green shift. That means that we have a lot of challenges ahead. But the green shift represents not only challenges, also great business opportunities are emerging. Demand for low and zero emission technology and products is expected to increase. The businesses that embrace this development can gain a competitive advantage in the green shift. And by joining forces, as you are today, we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and we can create new and greener jobs for the future. So thank you so much for your attention, and good luck with the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister, for that encouraging and quite optimistic address that you gave us. We have time for a quick question, and next on the program is a discussion around the current strong development within the battery industry. And I'm going to ask the two panelists that we are about to meet what they consider to be the driving force behind this development. Is it the market or is it the policy? Now, you're inclined to, I'm going to ask you, what is your view on that? Is it just the politics, or is it the markets, or is it a combination of the two? What do you think?
I think that's an easy question to answer, because you need both. You need politics for a green shift, but you definitely also need a market. So you can't just have the one. You need both, and they need to work together. And I think that is the only solution if we want to succeed. So I'm excited to hear if those two that you're going to ask the same question to, if they answer differently, if they believe that you only need one of the two, if you only need the market or the policies. I think you need both.
I think we can guess what they're going to answer, but we're going to go a little bit more into depth in that. And also, if I may, you were mentioning the competitive advantages that Norway has with our clean energy, etc., and also the competence. How important do you see Norway's role into the Green Deal and the initiative that they're taking?
Well, I'm very glad that the EU that they are doing so much, that they're so they really take it seriously, and there's a will to make a difference in the EU, and I'm really happy about that. And I want Norway to play a big role in the transition that we're going through. So it really is a goal for us to play a big part in the green shift.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing that evolve, definitely. And I would like to thank you once again, Minister, for taking the time to join us here this afternoon at Fevik and from Oslo. So thank you once again, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the seminar. Goodbye,
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you. Now, before I invite our next guests to join us, I want to encourage all of you in the audience, whether you're watching from afar or being physically present here at Fevik, at Strand Hotel, be active and participate in the discussions. And the way to do that is through Slido, an interactive tool. Now, you can find this little mobile phone of yours or a computer and open a browser, and you have to type slido.com. There you got the address on the screen. And the conference code that you will be asked for is PROSIN. That's pretty logical today, I think. And once you've done that, you're entering a forum where you can ask questions. And the genius of Slido is that you can all decide together what are the most relevant questions. Not by typing the same question over and over again, but by clicking like on the questions that you see that are relevant. So you're helping me out by just clicking like and not asking the same question several times. And the more likes a question gets, the higher up on the list it runs, which increases the chance of me asking the question to the panelists or the speakers. Smart, isn't it? I think it is. And I'm going to monitor the forum as we go along through this, and I'll try to convey as many questions as possible to the speakers as we go along, but please be a bit patient and active at the same time, so we're going to get through this in a very good way. Now, it is time to start our first discussion, namely the discussion of the driving forces behind the strong and fast development that we're seeing within the battery industry at the moment. And physically present, we have Stina Torjesen. You can actually join me on that table. That's within the social distance, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So this is Stina Torjesen from the University of Eyde. And you can give her a round of applause if you want. It's always welcoming. And this applause also goes to llka from Dalwigk, who is joining us digitally from InnoEnergy in Stockholm. And we're going to hear from her in just a minute, so we can see her up there on the screen, and she's going to join us soon. First, Stina, you're assistant professor at the University of Eyde, and your fields of expertise are emerging markets, sustainability, and regional cooperation. And you're also responsible for a work package at the Batman project looking at EU battery policy. Mm-hmm. After listening to the Minister of Trade and Industry of Norway, would you say that the government's ambitions are strong and committed enough to drive the development forward and further?
Yes, I mean, yeah, I would definitely say that that we do see a strong commitment, and it matches, I think, what we see with the EU Green Deal. Mm-hmm. And I think we should just recognize when we stand here in this region of Agder that this is very fortunate, and I think we should kind of pay attention to the fact that Agder does have some of the key assets that typically represents the Nordic region when it comes to batteries, with renewable energy, a large processing industry with nickel, we're developing graphite, and also experience with delivering to the car industry that we also see very much so in Sweden. So yeah, we're in a region that has a lot of assets, and we certainly welcome this opportunity that I think the government in Norway expresses, I think the government in Sweden expresses it, I think the EU expresses it, but I think the key point for us to discuss is what kind of opportunity is it? Mm-hmm. And what is this particular interplay between the market and politics? And I'm happy to kind of develop on that further on.
Yeah. Do you think that local initiatives in Norway, for instance, here in this region that we are present today, or even the Nordic, are receiving sufficient support from the authorities? One thing is ambitions and, you know, the will to do something, the will to work out policies, but the actual instruments and the actions, are they sufficient?
Well, you know, I'm not the one to judge the sufficiency of it. I think the key thing that we see happening now is policy measures taken on all levels. So you see local, regional, national, and the EU level. And I think the kind of the interesting thing with 2020 is, again, the level of ambition and the fact that the EU level is so much behind it. And I think, you know, the kind of shifts when our minister is talking about the opportunities that are there, it's not an ordinary opportunity. It's not an ordinary business opportunity. She's talking about demand, but it is very much a demand and a market that is created by regulations, and you need the regulations there. And I think when we see the picture now in 2020 is one where you see very clearly that the industry has the kinds of solutions that we need. But I think what they need is the market certainty. And I think the certainty that there will be regulations, that there will be rewards for taking a green path. And I think with the EU Green Deal, you have the EU Green Deal together with the industrial strategy of Europe. You have the financial side, sustainable finance, and you have the circular economy action plan. I think that kind of combination of measures is very forceful. And in this kind of COVID times, it's actually accelerated further because you have more funds being able to being invested into this sector. So I think 2020 is a really interesting time. It's a very fortunate time in a way from a battery perspective.
So you actually think things are accelerating and not slowing down?
Yes, I think they are, definitely, exactly. Yeah. I think they are accelerating, and I think we're getting that kind of we're getting towards that certainty. And I think the final point on the EU I think particularly when we're in a Norwegian setting, is to recognize, so post-COVID, we've seen the EU reacting slow when it comes to public health. We see from the earlier session this morning on Global Outlook, we perhaps want the EU to play a larger role when it comes to geopolitics. They're not really taking that. But what the EU does really well is to regulate the single market. Yeah. And this is really what this is about. It's about providing export or doing innovations in the single market. And I think that is a very forceful dimension of the EU.
And our second panelist is nodding. You can actually see her there, but she's nodding, and I'm going to draw llka in now. So llka, you're policy manager at InnoEnergy, which is a company driving and supporting innovation in sustainable energy. And amongst others, InnoEnergy has established the European Battery Alliance on behalf of the EU Commission. Now, the EU is clearly ambitious when it comes to the green transition, as we just heard. And in the first webinar in this series in June, one of the vice presidents of the Commission, Mr. Šefčovič, he stated that batteries are key to this transition. And he pointed out how the Nordic countries are among the best innovators in Europe. I was just wondering, since the Minister wanted you to reply to this, llka, would you say that this is a development that has been helped mainly by the market or by visionary politicians?
I think the Norwegian minister already said it quite well when how she phrased it. It's a public and private side, both working hand in hand together. And this has also been seen when we developed the European Battery Alliance since we started in 2017. It has been really a cooperation. It was industry-led, so maybe they're running always a little bit faster, but the supportive framework that is needed for the industry to develop and really also to dare to invest and build gigafactories in Europe. It's a lot of financial investment that is needed to set out a battery production facility. I think they will need the certainty, and if there's no backup by regulation or legislative framework, also giving some long-term certainty for the industry, it would not have been possible without the support of the European Commission to be at the point where we now. In 2017, there were almost no discussions and actions in Europe along the battery value chain. Right now, Europe is the global leader in this market segment, actually, where the most activities, where most projects are being announced all along the value chain. Is actually in Europe. There are newcomers, European ones, but also large Asian producers are looking towards Europe and want to establish facilities here. And I think this is only possible because there is such a strong commitment also from the governments and the European Commission on the electrification of the society.
Yeah. Stina, you wanted to comment on that, but at the same time, I was just wondering, when the Chinese are coming to Europe. Is that in line with the whole plan of EU to sort of reshore its own industry?
Yes, definitely. Just one comment to what Ylka is saying. So I definitely agree, and I think the peculiarity of the regulations we see now from the EU is one where industry is taking a very much a kind of proactive part. So it's very much built through consensus, and I think that makes it very durable and very likely that it will actually take in effect. So, say for example, the targets for the European car industry that where they are kind of required to reduce the carbon footprint of their kind of portfolio of cars that's being sold. That's a pretty forceful measure, but one where the car industry is very much, as I understand it, on board with it. So it's a regulation that has been forged through consensus, and that makes it actually quite likely that it will be adhered to as we go forward. So it's not necessarily an antagonistic situation where you have the industry players working against regulations. I think we've come to a point now where the industry and the commercial players are working this out together. And I think the interesting thing is which commercial actors are gaining the upper hand here, and which ones are being able to navigate regulations. And again, that is the challenge for us in Norway, to really kind of seize the moment and grab the opportunities that the regulations are creating for us before other commercial actors are taking it.
And how should we do that?
Your China question,
yeah, how are we going to do that?
Well, I mean, I think this is the question for the audience and the key players that are here. But just to kind of add to your other point on reshoring, so I think. And this is really what we want to study more at the University of Agder, and together with the Eyde cluster and the companies, is really this effort by Europe to reshore the battery industry. So at the moment, China is really the biggest player when it comes to batteries. They're also the biggest players when it comes to recycling. That's something we've learned learned over.
They're basically big.
They're big, and I think so. In a way, this is a test case whether Europe does, whether Europe will manage to reshore both the production side and the recycling side.
And a pretty concrete question regarding that from the audience is, do we have enough sustainable raw material for future battery production? And I could even add, in Europe, maybe?
Yeah, good question. I can answer, but I think Ylka maybe is even better placed. Yeah, it's up to you.
I think that's a very interesting question, and it comes once again back to looking at if the market and government goes hand in hand together. And I think especially when it comes to the production of raw materials from European sources, we have a lot of resources in Europe. We have occurrences of lithium. We have cobalt, nickel, graphite in Europe, but we do not have a lot of new mines opening in Europe. And this is where permitting issues coming in. And this is, I think, where government can help the industry in actually developing new sites for getting access to this material, but they can also setting standards for recycling of those materials. If you're looking at, for example, lithium, if you're just looking at the demand, I think if all the projects that are currently being developed in Europe, it will be enough to supply the European battery industry for up to almost 60 to 80% in the coming years.
That's quite high.
That's quite a lot, but it really depends on that permitting of the new mines. There's acceptance issues connected to it. I mean, there's a lot of aspects related to the mining industry that still need to be solved, and I think this cannot be done by the industry alone.
No. Dear ladies, we could discuss this further on for hours, I'm quite certain. We have to round up this discussion now, but Ylka, just one relatively easy question from the audience, but I don't know if there's an easy answer. Is there money for battery development in the Green Deal?
No,
yes or no?
That was an easy question. I don't know if I have the answer. There are some instruments that are following with the Green Deal, and they're my vacation brain is still on. It's my first day back at work. I think the Innovation Fund, there is some money. There's money for research, most certainly for research and development in the upcoming Horizon Europe program. The EIB is also encouraged to also looking at projects at the raw material side. But
the short answer is yes.
There is. Yeah. There's the project of common European interest, the IPCI. So there are ample of opportunities to get engaged and get funding for battery projects.
A very short comment from Stina here before we have to wrap it up.
So in addition to these measures, we see the European the battery directive or the new regulation on batteries coming in the wake of the EU Green Deal. And I think the two key points, we know that the battery directive will go ahead as planned, or the new regulation will go ahead as planned in between October and December. And I think from the measures the measures have now been presented, the draft measures, and I think there's two takeaways from those draft measures. So one is that it's clearly that many of the measures are seeking to enable a circular value chain on batteries, so setting targets, sharing information, so they're enabling that kind of circular value chain. And the second one is that it's providing the groundwork for rewards for a carbon-reduced production. There's no immediate measures yet, but I think the groundwork they're creating with information sharing and knowledge about the carbon footprint in all parts of the battery production, I think that is a groundwork for the European Union and other players to later being able to reward a carbon-reduced production.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, both of you. And you're going to have a nice round of applause when stepping down and turning off the camera. Thank you once again, Stina and llka. Now, I stated that this is a current strong development going on, so we're going to have a look at the proof in the pudding and get to know some of the many initiatives on the Nordic level currently going on, building a battery ecosystem. In this first section of what we call industrial examples, we're going to focus on anode material, and more specifically on the extremely useful and highly conductive mineral graphite. The market demand for graphite is increasing, and we'll hear about plans for production from 3 different actors. First, I'm going to leave the digital floor to Utsi, the general manager of Talga Sweden, situated in Luleå. Then we will hear from Peter Fox, Corporate Development Manager at Mineral Commodities, an Australian company who recently bought Skaland Graphite in Norway. He is going to join us from Perth, Australia, which he calls the Silicon Valley of mining. Last but not least, we will lend ears to Stian Madshus, Vice President Battery Materials at Elkem, a Norwegian company currently investing heavily in a pilot for anode material production. Now, these 3 are going to present their projects one after the other without me interrupting in between, but you guys are allowed to clap as well as you've done already between them. And there's no time for questions for this particular session, I'm afraid, but they're all easy to find afterwards and eager to communicate with you individually. So give it up for Utsi first.
Thank you for the kind invitation. It's a pleasure to present Talga for you today. We are originally from Australia, and we were founded by our MD Mark Thompson. We have our headquarters in Perth, and we are listed on the ASX since 2010. We started as an exploration company, but has evolved into an advanced materials company, mainly due to our unique graphite assets in the north of Sweden, where we are building an integrated anode supply chain. Europe is currently the fastest growing market for lithium-ion batteries, and a massive battery capacity is being planned and commissioned in a number of projects all around Europe. And with that, there is an increased demand for secure, local and clean supply of raw materials. And we have also noticed an increasing importance for the automotive OEMs of a clean raw material with a low CO2 footprint. When it comes to anode material, there is no production at all in Europe currently. Everything is imported from Asia, and according to forecasts, for instance, Benchmark Intelligence, at least 400,000 tons of anode material is required by 2028 for EU manufacturers only. Sweden is extremely well positioned for energy-intensive industry with a very competitive cost for power supply, but also with a very low CO2 footprint due to the hydropower. Sweden is also a leading mining country in Europe. We have a number of global technology leaders in equipment suppliers that innovate together with the mining companies, putting them also in the forefront of development. And that has also led to very high productivity, up to 6 times higher than international standards. So there is a fantastic opportunity for Talga and this project. The timing is really good now when the long-term lithium-ion battery boom has commenced and the fastest market being in Europe. And also the demand for local and clean supply. Also, anode is of a rather large volume of a battery. Around 50% of the active material consists of anode material. The European Union has also listed graphite as a critical raw material. So there's also political wish to have more of a domestic production and supply of natural graphite in Europe. So with that, entering to Talga and the project that we are planning, an integrated anode supply chain with the refinery by the coast in the north of Sweden in the town called Luleå, and being fed by graphite concentrate from a mine in even further north in a small village called Vittangi in the municipality of Kiruna. We plan a mining operation of around 100,000 tons. It's a rather small mine. We have a very high-grade ore. It's the highest in the world according to the JORC classification. So that also minimizes the footprint of the mine. It's an expected life of mine of 22 years. And with that mining rate, we can produce just under 20,000 tons of anode material, a product called Talnode-C, which is developed by Talga's in-house R&D team based in Cambridge. And it's a fully coated anode product, so it's ready to use for cell manufacturers. And we also have some specific properties for this in the material due to the characteristics of the ore, and that includes high power and fast charge, and also good performance in cold climate. We released a PFS last year in May with very good numbers for this project, and we also have a DFS underway, planned to be released early next year. Except from being part of the solution for a green shift and for a future low carbon economy, we also see some positive impacts locally with this project. We can employ around 100 people directly in this planned operations, but then also additional service that could develop in addition to the operations. With the hydropower supply in Sweden, we can also put a product on the market with an extremely low CO2 footprint, thousands times lower than the existing products on the market today. We can also be very competitive in price due to the high-grade ore and the very high process yield, but also the low-cost grid power. Talga work in strong partnerships with commercial partners and also research partners. Some of them were announced quite recently, like Farasis and Mitsui. Some other recent milestones include a number of commercial engagements for Talnode that is underway, and that also include qualification for EV markets. We have an approval for a trial mine, and we submitted our full-scale permit applications earlier this year. And overall, we aim at full-scale production by 2023. Short corporate overview, we have a market cap of around 128 million Australian dollars. Our biggest shareholder is a Norwegian family office, Smedvig. And with that, I thank you for the attention, and I hand over to Skaland Graphite and Peter Fox. Thank you.
Hello, Norway. I hope this finds everyone safe and well in these ever-challenging times. I'm sure you can understand why I haven't been able to join you there in person today, but I'm very much looking forward to getting back to Norway as soon as possible. So why have we got an Australian talking to you about raw material supply in the Nordic ecosystem? Our company, Mineral Commodities, acquired the Skaland Graphite mine late last year, and we see a lot of opportunity in mining battery raw materials in Norway. And this is why. Not just factors such as localisation, skilled labour and low-cost renewable energy that make establishing a vertically integrated business very compelling in Norway, but we'll be operating in a region that's has the most meaningful zero-emission policies on the planet, which will make Europe the fastest adopters of electrification globally. Another reason we're excited is the forecasted growth of battery raw materials demand. Last year, there were 7.2 million EVs. By 2030, that number could be as high as 140 or 245 million. And as you know, the adoption in the Nordics is much higher, with countries like Norway being a global leader. Only 5 countries in the world had electric car stock share higher than 1.5% in 2019, and 3 of them were from Nordic countries, Norway, Iceland and Sweden. The mineral intensity of clean energy technologies is high, and the production of these minerals needs to be considered. Look at aluminium, graphite and nickel. They're going to account for 1.4 gigatons of CO2 emissions up to 2050 if we do nothing. That's the equivalent of the total carbon dioxide emissions of France, Germany and the UK combined in 2018. So the way we supply these raw materials is going to have to change. Graphite, which is what we're mining in Norway, accounts for nearly 54% of battery mineral demand through to 2050. Production of graphite will need to increase significantly and ramped by nearly 500%. Graphite used in anodes has a very large role to play. Graphitic anode has an excellent cycle life, is low cost, has good electrochemical properties and is compatible with most cathode chemistries. The Chinese dominate the graphite market. They produce over 78% of all synthetic graphite and 70% of the natural graphite. And some of this, unfortunately, in quite unsustainable ways. So what we're looking to do is to provide the opportunity for European OEMs to diversify their supply base. The chart on the left shows the graphite market without batteries, which is in oversupply. It only grows at about 1% annually. To the right, it's with batteries, growing at 20% per annum. But right now, building a new graphite mine is incredibly difficult because the market can't support new mines while waiting for the forecasted demand from batteries. That's why we acquired Skaland and with it the existing production. And this is also where we began to unpack the opportunity in Norway, the leverage off Skaland's existing production and realise our downstream ambitions. Skaland is the world's highest grade operating flake graphite mine. It's the largest producer in Europe and the 4th largest producer globally outside of China. Skaland has current production of about 10,000 tonnes, but we see opportunities to increase that production profile. We also see opportunities to upgrade the plant and increase the grade and the size of the concentrate we're producing at Skaland. This is going to improve the value and also make it more suitable for anode production. To convert flake graphite concentrate into an active anode material, first we must micronise and then spharinise the material and then purify it before coating. When spharinizing the graphite, you can lose up to 50% of the material in the process. So in other words, that's going to take 2 tonnes of natural flake to produce a tonne of spherical graphite. We've already qualified vendors for micronisation and spharinization equipment. And given the high energy requirement in reducing and shaping the graphite, we feel that using the low cost and renewable energy in Norway is going to give us a very competitive cost point on our products. The last step is to purify the graphite. High purity battery grade graphite must be in excess of 99.95% graphitic carbon. Chemical purification of natural graphite is predominantly done using very highly toxic hydrofluoric acids, which come at very high environmental costs and also health and safety risks and concerns. MRC, in partnership with the Australian government, has developed a method of achieving 99.97% pure graphite from 2 different environmentally sustainable non-hydrofluoric processes. And we're going to bring that technology up to Norway and build an anode manufacturing plant to produce precursor and active anode material. This plant will cater for scale production from Skaland as well as future supply from our project in Australia. So our plan is to establish a Nordic anode business and brand right here in Norway. And this is why we feel it's important. At present, 100% of all commercial production of natural spherical graphite takes place in one country, which is China. The strategic location of our asset puts us in a wonderful geopolitically safe position to supply Europe's insatiable demand for battery raw materials. That demand is growing every day, with over 550 gigawatt hours of battery manufacturing capacity in the pipeline that will require over 450,000 tonnes of anode material annually. And the entrepreneurism in this space is being driven from the Nordics. Northvolt, Morrow and Freya, all fantastic examples. We're incredibly excited to be already working with Tom and his team at Freya to have our anode material in a Freya battery. We could be making Europe's very first and only 100% mine-to-market battery right here in Norway. But that's why we see opportunity in the Nordic battery ecosystem. Who would have thought that this beautiful piece of scenery on the edge of the Arctic Circle in northern Norway could play such an important and integral role in helping us secure the crucial raw materials that we will need today to ensure that we and our children and our grandchildren can have a better tomorrow.
It will be about Elkem's plans for large-scale anode manufacturing production in Norway. Elkem sees great opportunities in the battery value chain. We're today now talking about active anode materials, where graphite is the dominating material today, but Elkem is also doing a lot of R&D on tomorrow's solutions for higher energy density by introducing silicon-based materials. Graphite is not graphite. Elkem produces synthetic graphite as opposed to natural or mined graphite that Talga and Skaland have talked about here. Both types serve the same basic purpose, being the host for lithium when the battery is in a charged state. Both materials have their pros and cons, but for the huge demand that we are seeing for these materials, there's certainly room for both types of materials. Further down the value chain, Elkem has several commercial advanced silicone solution products that goes into thermal management of battery modules and packs, and also other applications on protection of electronics and high voltage cables. And we're also seeing with great interest at the recycling space. But today's talk will be about Elkem activities within synthetic graphite. Europe is definitely waking up, and there are substantial investments in localizing the cell manufacturing. However, the supply of anode graphite material is totally dominated by Asian players. This poses a supply security issue for critical materials in Europe, and really a lot of graphite is needed. As we heard the two last speakers here, probably around 500,000 tons annually in 2030, catering to around 500 gigawatt hours of annual cell manufacturing capacity. Moreover, today's production of these materials is generally very polluting, a lot of sulfur emissions and so on, and low energy efficiency processes. It's very energy intensive, and depending on the electricity mix, the CO2 footprint can be a substantial contributor to the overall CO2 footprint of the battery. Elkem believes a change is needed, and we want to lead the way to make battery production greener. Number one for Elkem is to produce high-performance materials. The anode is a very critical part of the battery cell, and the graphite quality directly affects properties such as energy density, the speed you can charge the battery, lifetime, how many cycles the battery can last, and importantly, safety aspects. With the project that we have now, we want to enable sustainable and competitive production through implementing higher energy efficiency technology, more closed systems, the use of clean hydropower for these very energy-hungry processes. Here we're heating material up to around 3,000 degrees centigrade. We have more closed systems for off-gas abatement, and also a very high level of automation, which is definitely required for this kind of production to be economically feasible in Norway. And there's also certainly a quality aspect to automating processes. The Elkem product is typically goes into a big bag. It's a fine powder, 10 to 20 micron in size. And you see the bag here, where the product is delivered to the cell manufacturer, and it's mixed with additives and a binder to form a slurry. The slurry is then applied in a very thin layer on the current collector copper foil, and dried and densified, and then it's layered with separator and cathode, and then this layering is repeated many times to make one cell, where you add in the electrolyte, and then you do the formation cycling, and you have the finished battery cells. The anode material, a very critical quality part of the battery. So these cells are then assembled into battery modules and packs before being integrated in the vehicle. With a huge amount of graphite needed for this industry going forward, we think that it's very important that we also recycle the graphite, not only the more valuable kind of cobalt and nickel and so on. We put a lot of energy into producing these very nice, highly engineered, advanced materials. It's a pity just to incinerate them, which is what is basically being done today. So we are working closely with, we have very promising results today by reprocessing recycled graphite into new anode material, and we work with several partners. This is certainly an area that is creating a lot of interest for our future customers. So a little bit more specifically about where Elkem is today and what we are doing is that we have set up a fully operational small pilot facility, all process steps to produce finished anode material on small size industrial equipment. This is in Kristiansand, Norway. We also invested in a battery cell testing lab. We are now also constructing an industrial pilot capable of producing roughly 200 tons per year. This is under construction and should be ready towards the end of this year. Also here, all process steps are implemented with industrial scale equipment, also at Elkem's site in Kristiansand. Here we will, this is a very important part of our strategic build-up towards industrialization. In the industrial pilot, we will verify process and business case, do the final steps of product development, and produce industrial samples for customer qualification, and of course, train the operations team. It's a key component in our strategy. In parallel, we are planning a large-scale production plant in Norway, up to 20,000 tons. To meet the market demands, we need to move really fast here. We are looking at start of production in 2023. And moving very fast, because this industry is really moving at a lightning speed, not only for our project, but also projects in other parts of the battery value chain in Norway. I think it's important that Norway really has the right framework conditions in place, supporting a high-speed industrialization. There are great opportunities for Norway in this space, and we should ensure that we can put our green mark on the energy storage revolution. Thank you.
Thank you to Stian and Peter and Anna for presenting highly exciting and very forward-leaning projects. So we're wishing them all good luck. Now, time is a factor. We are now going to have a short, I'm not going to say break, it's just stretching your legs. We can open the doors and let some of the wind come in here. And for those following us from afar, you can also stretch your legs. And we're going to reconvene at precisely 6 o'clock Central European Standard Time. So have a nice break, and for those here physically, you can just wait for some ice lollies to pop up through the doors over there. So see you again at 6 o'clock.